Alright, in this video what we're going to do is we're going to look at selection inside of Word. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a new Word document, and just to get some text in here, I found this website with some data on there. So I'm just going to copy this, highlight this from all the way over here, and we're noticing one way of selection, the same way as it is in Word. If I were to select on the edge and hold down the left mouse button and then scroll, I can automatically go through and select. This is the same way we select inside of Word. So I'm going to go ahead and drag there and select all of this up to about there, and then I'm going to copy this and paste it. Now another way to do that sort of selection and paste it here would be, after selecting this, now that it's all selected, I'm going to drag the blue spot. So I'm going to click and hold, and I'm just going to drag it over here to Word. And as you can see, that's another way of copying and pasting, by dragging and dropping. So you can either hit Control C and Control V over here, or highlight what you want and then drag it over to Word. Now that I have my test data, let's quickly go over how to get rid of all these links that are in there. Now whenever there's a link inside of here, it's a possibility that someone can click on those and you may not even want that. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go down here and I'm going to delete the extra space, and then I'm going to select everything here, and then I'm going to right click on it until I get this styles menu, and I'm going to click on the little black arrow right there, and I'm going to click on clear formatting, and then what it'll do is get rid of all of that formatting. But I still have these links here. So what I need to do here is highlight the part that I want, and I can remove, I'm going to highlight everything that I had recently selected, and then I'm going to right click on it, and then I'm going to go over here and click keep text only. Now the way I was able to highlight this, and we're into our first the first technique for highlighting things. The first technique is just by clicking and dragging. So I'm going to click on this and drag it, and then I'm just going to drag down. So that's my first way of highlighting something. And because I want to get rid of all of this extra stuff, because I pasted this in here, I'm going to right click on this, and then I'm going to go here to paste options because I just recently pasted it, and I'm going to put keep text only, and I'm going to click on that. And so that part right there allowed me to keep the text only. I still have something over here, so I'm going to go and do the same thing by dragging, clicking and dragging across, and then right click, keep text only, like that. There we go. Alright, so now I'm ready to do some more selections. There's another way to select that doesn't have anything to necessarily do with the mouse. Basically, I'm going to use the arrow key. So I'm going to click on the edge or wherever I want to start my selection. And then if I hold the shift key down and then use the arrows on the keyboard, I can actually select by using the arrow keys. Now this is very important when you're doing something like creating let's say like macros, because macros don't actually recognize the mouse. They only recognize keyboard shortcuts and just keystrokes. So this is a really good way of being able to get your macro to select a particular area and then using that later. Our other technique for selection would be the shift plus the home key or the end key. So let's say if I were to put my cursor here, and then I want to go ahead and select without using the mouse. I'm going to hold down shift and I'm going to hit the home key on my keyboard. That brings me all the way up at the top. But if I were to hold shift down and hit the end key, it goes to end of that sentence or that line, and then I can keep on going to the end of that line. Now because there's a space here, it's not going to go any further. However, if I were to go here and hit to the end, it goes into the end of that line. And then if I were to hit shift and then the arrow key down, it'll start selecting everything from that point down. So two selection techniques that we just used. Hold shift, end, goes to end of the sentence, and if I hit home, it goes back to the beginning, the home of the sentence, end, and then home, while holding shift down. Now if I go to end and then hit the arrow key while holding shift, it'll select all the other ones down there. And all of this is without actually using the mouse. Now with the mouse, however, I can actually select a word by double clicking on it. That's one technique. But if I were to triple click, it'll select the entire sentence. So it's doing the same thing. I select that, then I can do a triple click, and it'll select everything up till it gets to a new line. Now, I'm selecting inside of this text here, but I can also select something from the margins here. So if I were to go ahead and click on this margin, you can see how, because I'm clicking on the margins, I'm selecting those lines. Now, if I were to click and drag the margins, I can select everything this way also. Another way of selection, and this is a shortcut key, we're going to hold down Control A, and that'll select everything. That's one of my favorite. Now, if I hold down Control and click, however, watch what I can do. I can just go ahead and select pieces of something. So let's say if I were to select this, and select this, and select this. I'm just selecting parts of something. And that's what happens when I hold down Control and click. And so I'm using that first selection when I'm selecting a word by double clicking the word, not the triple click. And I'm selecting each one that I want. Now this is good for a lot of reasons. Not that I would copy this and paste it, but there may be things inside of here that I want to alter. For instance, maybe I want to add a style to those. Or maybe I want to add some sort of text effect to just those. You know, change the size and maybe even the font. But I was able to do that with that Control click, so that's why that's useful. If I wanted everything to change, let's say I wanted everything to go back and remove all the styles, well, I can hit Control A, the one we just previously learned, and then I can right click on that and then go here and clear styles like what we did before. And that brings everything back to the way it was. Now, if I go ahead and Alt drag, so I'm going to click here and I'm going to Alt drag, I get another kind of selection where I can make awkward, more rectangular selections vertically. So what you'll see is that only some styles will act the way you expect it to, and other styles will actually do the entire line. So it all depends on what you're selecting and what you want to do. If I hold down Alt and then drag that, but if I wanted to change the size, it's going to change the size to everything. However, if I were to add some sort of text effect on there, it'll change the text only to what I have selected. So it all depends on what you're trying to do with this particular selection, but with the other selections, it's clear exactly what it's going to do. So the last few very useful selection tools that we're able to use inside of Word is when we use the Control Shift and up or down arrow. So if I were to put my mouse here and I were to hold down Control Shift and the up arrow, you can see it's selecting everything in that paragraph at the top. If I were to hit the down arrow, it's selecting everything from that point and it stops at the end of the paragraph. I can go down to the next paragraph, but it's going to go ahead and select the entire paragraph when I get there. So using that Shift Control arrow, I'm able to select an entire paragraph from where the mouse cursor is. So let's say if I said, okay, everything in this paragraph, nothing about okay, let's do it here. I don't want all of this stuff changed, but I do want everything in this paragraph to the top of this paragraph changed. So I hold down my Shift and Control and I hit my up key and it gets all of that. And maybe I just wanted to delete that. You know, whatever you wanted to do. So that's a really useful way of doing it. Now the other one is the Alt Control Shift and page up. So if I held down my Alt Control Shift and then page up, you'll see from this point it's going to select everything in this document all the way up to the top of the page and leave everything else alone. So instead of me sitting here saying, okay, I want to select all of this, I'm going to come all the way over here and I'm going to select all of this here. Now, instead of doing all that, that took some time. And imagine if this was 30 pages long or whatever. Instead, I can just go here and hold down Alt Shift Control, and hit page up. Or hit page down, which it will do everything from this point. There we go. So that's some of the most useful selection tools we have inside of Word. And I think we went over about 15 of those. We talked about the margin click. So if I click on the margin, we talked about the margin click and drag. So I can drag it that way. We talked about Control A. We also talked about Control click. So if I hold down Control click and selecting things individually, as you can see, that was the Control click. Then the next one was Shift click. It was click, shift, click. So let's say if I wanted this paragraph here, right? So I will click it where I want to start, and then hold down shift, and then click where I want it to end. So let's say here. It'll select all of that. Let's try that again. Click where I want it to start, and then shift, hold shift down, then click where you want it to end. That was the click, shift, click sort of way of doing things. The other one was the alt drag, where I hold down the alt key and I'm able to drag that in any sort of weird shape that I want, and then I can alter that way. We did the selection control. So if I were to hold down the selection and then hit control, as you can see, I can go back and forth between that. That was my original selection. Here's my second selection. Original selection, second selection. So the final ones that we did was the Control Shift arrows. So we did the Control Shift arrows. So I'm going to put my mouse here. Control Shift arrows. Arrow, arrow. Arrows are going to select these paragraphs and select the sentences or the lines. And then we did the Control Alt Shift page up and Control Alt Shift page down. So we went through a lot of different shortcut keys. Try to memorize some of these. And just try to memorize a few because they can make your life a lot easier when working in Word. And as a matter of fact, a lot of these shortcut keys can also work in Google Docs. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you share this video. And make sure you, again, I've been waiting for that, the $1 million check you said you were going to send me. So make sure you put that in the mail probably today. At no later than tomorrow, because I got stuff I have to do. All right. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.